So this is our first evening where we've gone back to the schedule we used to follow for many years until earlier this year, of having a Dhamma reflection on Saturday night. And we switched back we tried a period of Sunday afternoon teachings instead of Saturday night, but for various reasons have moved it back to Saturday night. And then this Saturday night also happens to coincide with our weekly lunar observance. This is the half moon. And part of our lunar observance days, as most people know, we go on alms round. We have several alms routes, one in Ukiah, one in Redwood Valley, and one that goes just up and down Tom Kai Road here. And I was on the Ukiah alms round this morning, and it was, I think by all standards, one of the most delightful alms rounds that we've been on in a long time, at least that I've been on in a long time. And it started out pretty much just after we got out of the vehicle that drove us in on the south end of town, as we were putting our alms bowls on our shoulders, getting our robes all neat and tidy. A woman on a bicycle pedaled up and started exclaiming all sorts of superlatives about seeing us. And they didn't make a lot of sense, but I wasn't quite sure exactly what she was saying, but she was obviously inspired, and we realized that maybe there wasn't a lot of it wasn't making a whole lot of sense, but it was coming from a very lovely place, and it just was a great way to start the alms round. And then just the variety of places that we've been invited to stop, and the people clearly enjoying being able to make offerings, expressing their generosity, and the goodness that comes from that, and a very spontaneous offering at a restaurant that we don't usually stop at, or in fact almost never, because they're not open at that time. But there was a special event happening where some of the supporters from the City of 10,000 Buddhas were offering food using that restaurant as a home base for it. They had some breakfasty kinds of foods, oatmeal and fruits and things like that. And I can't remember the name of the procedure they were using, but basically it was an offering where people could come in and just receive food with no specific charge, and then pay for the next person, or pay for the previous person, or something like that. Just basically making an offering to keep it going, but sounded like pretty much based on dana. And they saw us as we walked by, and somebody very excitedly popped out and said, "Oh, can you please come in and receive some food offerings?" So they offered us some oatmeal and fruit and a few rolls, and we chanted a blessing, and it was just a very delightful, spontaneous offering that we received. And it just seemed to kind of flow like that throughout the rest of the alms round, and there wasn't anybody hurling invectives today, I don't think. Sometimes we get those every now and then. And those are okay. They help keep us honest. But today was one where it was lots of praise, lots of support, and almost so many offerings that we couldn't bring them back in the vehicle. It was filled to the brim. So you can see the effect that has on the mind, the uplifting, the appreciation, the sense of giving and receiving, and the power of that. And that's part of what, that's part of the scene here in the developing Dhamma in the West, as the monastic tradition puts some tentative roots into the ground, starts to establish ourselves. And this evening we have the presence of some visitors, monastic visitors from Dhammadharini, who are joining us. 4 of the nuns from Dhammadharini joining us this evening. So we have the fourfold assembly represented here tonight. And just the inklings, the little beginnings of establishing traditional monastic Dhamma in the West, just been developing over the past several decades, really, all very new. And just wanting to watch how that develops over the centuries since the Buddha began his dispensation more than 2,500 years ago. Monastic traditions have waxed and waned. They've spread to other countries from India on out throughout Southeast Asia and then Northern Asia. Traditions have taken up slightly different forms in different places. And the tradition has gone through periods of increase and periods of decline in all of these various manifestations. You know, as it's coming to just barely starting here in the West, we have not seen too much of a decline yet. Barely gotten a start, but want to be attentive to those qualities of our lifestyle that lead to the development and increase and growth of a community versus those that lead to the decline and even degradation. And it's usually when certain factors come into being that the community starts to establish itself and receive lots of support and recognition to the point where it can start sowing the seeds of decline. And this is because the monastic community, we're not all arahants. In fact, there's probably not a whole lot of us, very few of us in the world these days that have completed the path, although there are some. But still subject to greed, hatred, and delusion. And the Buddha talks very clearly in some of the teachings. In fact, there's a whole section in the Samyutta Nikaya about being very the hazards of success, the hazards of what he calls fame, honor, and gain, particularly as it relates to the monastic community. But you can relate this to any of the ways that people operate in the world, and also as the way that Dhamma has come into the West. There's a predominance here of lay teaching communities, as it's gotten its foothold in the West. Pretty much in any state you go to, I think, there's existence of meditation centers or lay practice groups with lay teachers based in various traditions, and a much less presence, of course, as we know, of monastic communities. But all of these communities, all of us, as the practice develops in the West, it would serve us well to be attentive to these qualities that have developed in communities in Asia that have caused their decline, and to try and be very cognizant of that, to prevent, to the best of our abilities, this from happening as we start to establish ourselves. So in many ways, the Buddha exhorts us to be very wary of these factors: gain, honor, and fame. We are starting to be seen and appreciated, I think, as monastic communities and the supporters of monastic communities in the West, because we're seen, at least in the eyes of a few people, maybe not a whole lot, but in the eyes of a few people, to hold a thread back to the time of the Buddha, a thread of authenticity of teachings, whereas we may not have actualized, perfected them to their fullest extent. We have a sincere appreciation and interest in keeping the tradition alive in as close to the form as is possible, going back to the time of the Buddha, and the teachings as well, holding back to the roots. And if we can keep a pure line of practice that closely resembles what it was like at the time of the Buddha, then as the years move on, people will obviously take bits and pieces of that, form traditions and practices, taking from the teachings of the Buddha in various ways, and those will have their popularity, and then they will probably have their decline as well. It's just the way of the world. But as best we can, in those of us in and supporting the monastic tradition, one thing we can do is to try and help keep that thread alive, so that there's always something as close as possible to the original to draw from. If we don't do anything else other than that, I think we've accomplished a lot. The Buddha predicts, and this has been the case in all the dispensations of all the Buddhas over countless eons of time, that a dispensation established, such as Gautama Buddha established 2,500 years ago, will last for a certain period of time, have its peak, and then will decline, and the teachings will disappear. And when the teachings disappear, there will be, hopefully, an opportunity for the teachings to arise again with the arising of a new Buddha. But in the meantime, we can do what we can do to help keep the tradition as alive and unadulterated as possible. Sometimes we're seen as a bit anachronistic, holding to a very traditional form that doesn't seem to have a lot of relevance in people's minds. Especially as the tradition came to the West, we often get a lot of polite acknowledgement, but I would hear of stories of people kind of referring to us as quaint, or some sort of slightly derogatory term, kind of a throwback to a time that really is no longer relevant. But as time goes on, we seem to establish ourselves a little bit more firmly, and have to try and honor that and try and keep that going as best we can. And the way that we do that is by keeping the goal in mind. We're not here to develop a big following, have lots of devotees to the tradition. We're not here to develop ourselves as charismatic teachers with a big following. We're not here to see how many hits we can get on YouTube with our Dhamma talks. We're here to do the best we can to realize peace in our own lives, and to share it with others as is appropriate from that understanding, from that self-realization of the path. So we have to be very wary of succumbing to any kind of recognition, praise, and support that we get. We use that and we encourage people to support the tradition and to practice with us as closely as they are able, as closely as they wish to help keep this thread going, because the potential for really realizing the truth of the Buddhist teachings, the potential is here, and we all long for this peace of mind, this peace of the heart that is possible in the fullest way. And we just have to keep reminding ourselves, this is what we're here to do. We're not here to be the best of anything or to be the cleverest teacher, to establish a strong, solid base. We're here to practice in the most sincere way possible, regardless of the support we receive or the support we don't receive. So this is our task as a monastic community, both the monastics themselves and the supporters in the lay community. So keeping this goal in mind. I guess one could summarize it just as trying to establish and practice with the highest level of impeccability, genuine authenticity as to what the Buddha was teaching, and to really honor the sacrifice he made in his quest for enlightenment and his compassion for teaching it for so long during his lifetime, and that it has lasted more than 2,500 years. And to live up to that. So we have to constantly practice and learn the teachings and try and establish the causes and conditions to keep this going. And the Buddha talks about the two major factors, he calls two major factors for development of the path. The external factor of Sangha, or the Kalyanamitta, spiritual friendship, those of us who are all gathered here this evening, and really settling into that, really imbibing the presence of good friends who have the same aspiration. Talked about that a lot in recent weeks and months, and the importance of this. It's a major source of refuge for us. The other factor that the Buddha talks about is the internal factor of yoniso manasikara, wise attention or appropriate attention, and that single factor, it has a lot of ramifications. In fact, if we just think about the various ways that we can work with that concept of wise attention, appropriate attention, and how it's presented in the teachings, we see what a powerful tool that is in our practice. In fact, it permeates and pervades the entire the path, the Eightfold Path, as the primary tool to make us clearly embedded in the path of right effort. So I thought I'd just spend a few moments this evening just reviewing some of those aspects of appropriate attention and also its counterpoint, inappropriate attention, ayoniso manasikara, to use as a reflective tool. Many of the teachings that the Buddha offers are tools for actual reflection. Of course, we've got the meditation to help calm, still, settle the mind, the development of samadhi. And then we have the practices of active reflection to help keep us moving towards the development of the full path. And Yoniso Manasikara is one of those tools that we use to keep us directed and on the right path. And it's one of the primary tools that we can use to keep us from falling prey to the attractions of gain, honor, and fame, and the decline of the practice. There's one sutta that the Buddha taught that really encompasses a significant amount of the teachings around Yoniso Manasikara, maybe considered to be the primary teaching. There's others as well that expound on various aspects and introduce certain other elements related to wise attention, appropriate attention. But the Sabbasava Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya is one of the primary ones. Sabbasava, Sabba meaning all or the entire, and asavas, sometimes variously translated as outflows or restraint, outflows or taints, fermentations, different words that describe this, translate this word asava. Basically, the asavas are the outflows of mind, I like the word outflows, or the taints of mind that keep us bound in the cycles of samsara, of suffering, repetitive rebirth in the round of samsara. And it's the asavas that the Buddha overcame on the night of his enlightenment. And they're generally listed as three: the outflow or taint of sensuality, the asava of becoming, and the outflow of ignorance. So kamasawa, pavasawa, avijjasawa. Those factors that keep us rolling over and over again through samsara, through repetitive rebirth into the realm of suffering. And the Buddha talks about how, with the use of wise attention, how we can direct our attention in wise and appropriate ways to reduce and eventually eliminate these asavas. Talks about it in different ways. In this teaching, he begins with talking about how we can use seeing as a way to reduce and end the asavas. So there are the taints that can be overcome by seeing. And this refers to seeing as in the teachings on knowing and seeing, jnana-dasana. And what the Buddha talks about is that if we have inappropriate attention, and he's kind of starting actually really at a very sophisticated beginning in this teaching, going straight to some of the more sublime teachings around self, not self, and the Four Noble Truths right at the get-go. And he points to the fact that if we put a lot of inappropriate attention into this perception of self, that is a root cause for the development and the continuance of the outflows, particularly the outflow of ignorance. And that all the different ways that we operate and support this perception of an unchanging self lead us to really solidifying our place in samsara. And he talks about it in terms of how we can view ourselves and then the resulting views about existence come about. And so, we have views of of trying to have questions and of who we are. What were we in the past? What will we be in the future? How were we in the past? How will we be in the future? And all of these kind of speculative views that involve some reference to me, mine, myself, my soul. Any of these kind of speculative views lead to the solidification of stances like, I am eternal, or upon the breakup of this body, there will be nothing, the annihilationist view. All the different permutations and combinations of selfhood that can come up, whether it's eternalist or annihilationist, however it will manifest, are part of the ways that we use inappropriate attention to try and analyze experience, to try and establish some sort of view of existence, the cosmos, and all the metaphysical stances that philosophers can take. And the Buddha basically says this is unwise attention. It doesn't lead to anything other than more suffering. And essentially, when people would ask him point blank about some of these speculative views, he more or less would just not answer them and say, what I teach is suffering and the end of suffering. It was just useless to go into any depth of debate about these issues. So the counterpoint in terms of seeing that the Buddha points to for appropriate attention is to basically see, understand, penetrate the Four Noble Truths. And it sounds kind of basic, but essentially we were talking about it at tea time today, that it's by not understanding these Four Noble Truths that we keep ourselves bound in the cycles. And that the full understanding, penetration of these Four Noble Truths, including the path leading to the cessation, is in a way, the culmination of appropriate attention. So trying to see our experience, not in terms of who we are or existence or all sorts of potential viewpoints, but to see our experience in terms of what leads to suffering, what leads to the end of suffering. And how in this moment, as we go through the day, as we practice, as we sit in meditation, to try and view all of our experience through this lens of Dhamma, through this lens of the Four Noble Truths. This is the use of appropriate attention. So taints to be abandoned by seeing clearly, seeing correctly, seeing in terms of Dhamma. The second category that he talks about in terms of appropriate attention, wise reflection, is, and this is probably not in the exact order as in the sutta, but it's the way I remember it, taints to be abandoned by using. And now he starts to kind of backtrack a little bit to talking about some of the more basic ways that we can use appropriate attention to abandon the asavas. And using of the four requisites is what he talks about, how to engage with the material world around us in a way that is supportive to our practice and helps to slowly chip away at attachment to the material world. Because there's a lot of comfort and pleasant experience that we can engage in and feeds this temporary sense of goodness or happiness, well-being, but ignores the long-term sources of happiness, then we're not using these requisites carefully. So he encourages us to use the requisites of food, clothing, shelter, medicines in a wise way to help end the outflows, so that we reflect, and we do this with our regular daily reflections as monastics, to use food just for the nourishment of this body. Doesn't mean we can't enjoy when pleasant food is offered, but we try not to indulge too much to the point where we've overeaten, we've ruined our mindfulness and our ability to practice through the day, and we've just increased the level of sensual craving by reinforcing it through eating just for the sake of pleasure. So we reflect to eat for the maintenance and nourishment of this body, to keep it healthy, for practicing the holy life, the practice of meditation, reflection, and understanding the teachings. So using it wisely, attending wisely to the requisites, and the same with keeping our needs for clothing, for shelter, and medicinal requisites to the bare minimum of what it takes to have a simple level of comfort and well-being without having to spend our whole day seeking these requisites. So this is how to use appropriate attention through using. Restraint is another category, and basically referring to restraint of the senses. So as we move through the day and operate in the world, whether we're lay or monastic, the more that we can keep to a sense of mindful centeredness with our sensory basis, so that we're not always being yanked and pulled through desire or aversion or ignorance into the realm of sights and sounds and tastes, tactile sensations, smells, and also the realm of ideas, the mental realm of ideas and musings. To notice when craving or irritation or anger pulls us out of our centered base, and how we use sights and thoughts and sounds, all the activities of the senses, to draw us out. And it just usually leads us into more and more confusion. So we use sense restraint to keep ourselves contained as a way of preventing the outflows from grabbing hold. Sense restraint doesn't mean sensory isolation or sensory deprivation, but means when we see, when we hear, when we experience the realm of sensory input, to see it clearly and to see that there is a certain amount of gratification, but that the whole realm of senses is very transitory, and it doesn't provide a firm foundation or a firm place of refuge, and that the constant movement of the sensory world around us, the constant changing, isn't a place where we can rest and take refuge. So we learn to attend wisely to the realm of senses. We're not shut off, but we try not to get pulled into desire controlling where we look, what we eat, what we listen to. We're very conscious of where it is that we get lost and confused in the realm of senses, and pull back and see things as they truly are, and not get wrapped up into their appearances, not attending to the signs and features of the sensory world around us that are provocative of craving or provocative of anger, but seeing things just as they are, not getting lost into the superficial qualities. So sense restraint. Another category in this sutta the Buddha talks about is enduring, so that there's obviously times when we experience a lot of pleasant experience, like this morning on Alms Round. And then there's times when there's a lot of unpleasant experience that comes, that we have to develop a sense of patience, forbearance, equanimity, endurance in some cases, so that we don't get pulled into any of the outflows. And it can come in terms of physical discomfort, all the way from very severe kinds of physical discomfort that aren't alleviated by medicines or medical treatments, and to even more of the minor irritations, the minor unpleasant experiences. I know even after 20 years of monastic life, sometimes it's still so hard to yank myself out of bed at 3:30 or 4 in the morning to get out of a nice warm sleeping bag and into a cold room that hasn't been heated yet. But to get down here for morning puja, we can all, I think, relate to that sometimes as an experience that we just have to endure with. We have to sometimes experience physical discomfort in our lives. Mental discomfort too, critical words, harsh words, people saying things that are unpleasant, telling us things about ourselves that we may not want to hear, misunderstandings, disagreements, harsh words that we have to sometimes endure because we know if we buy into them, react to them, engage in a tit for tat around these uncomfortable experiences, that we're just going to suffer more and increase the suffering of those around us. So sometimes we have to endure these unpleasant experiences and develop a sense of forbearance. Not that we don't eventually respond in a skillful way, but we wait patiently until the emotions settle and we can speak and act from more of a clear place, so that we just don't increase the pain and difficulty. So we can develop a lot of patience, equanimity, and even kindness and wisdom through just being patient, through enduring some of the difficult aspects of life that we don't have a lot of control over. This is also wise attention, knowing how to do that in a wise way. Removing is another category, and he's referring to the removal of sensuality, the pursuit of sensuality, and instead using wise attention, looking at simplicity or renunciation. Renunciation is not a very popular word in our culture these days, but can sort of soften that a little bit by using the word simplicity. Everybody can appreciate the benefits that come from simplifying our lives and not accumulating too much, not acquiring too much, and being dependent on that. Also removing ill will and removing thoughts of harm, thoughts of cruelty. These are taints to be abandoned through removing. And so if we put inappropriate attention onto sensuality, inappropriate attention into irritation or ill will, or to sometimes our very emotional reactions to want to harm, if we can redirect with appropriate attention to their opposites, simplicity, loving kindness, compassion, and fully develop these in our meditation practice and just in our daily life, what a difference we can see in the quality of our experience. So abandoning the asavas through removing of these habitual mind states that take us into suffering. Avoiding is another category the Buddha talks about. And this is very basic, basically not finding ourselves, not putting ourselves in situations that are going to be harmful to ourselves and dangerous in a way. And in the Buddhist teaching he mentioned things like avoiding jungle habitats of dangerous creatures like lions and tigers and elephants. I think probably more of a modern day equivalent would be, particularly for monastics, but everyone who's sincere in the practice, not going and hanging out in places where lots of unseemly things are happening, like not going into the parts of town where there's drug activity and all sorts of other kinds of activities that will take us in the direction we don't want to go in. So just being very practical, placing ourselves in situations that will support the qualities of mind that we're seeking to experience, so that we don't get caught in unwise attention to these things that will draw us out of that. The last category that the Buddha talks about is taints to be abandoned through developing. And specifically, he defines developing the 7 factors of enlightenment as a basis of support for ending the asavas. So the 7 factors of mindfulness, investigation, energy, the development of energy and inspiration, and that when we do that, when we start to hone in on mindfulness as a basis for our awareness and investigating the things, our obstructions, the hindrances that we have, looking at them, asking ourselves what's the quality of my mind now? What are the qualities that are happening in here to lead to contentment, peace, versus the qualities that are leading to agitation and unpeacefulness. So really looking clearly at that and developing a sense of energy and resolve to really move beyond these states of mind and to, again, apply right effort to abandon the unwholesome ones and encourage the wholesome states of mind, the states of mind that lead to peace and wisdom, clarity, kindness. And as we do that, developing and encouraging this sense of energy and interest and rapture at what the potential is, really reflecting that we have the potential to develop positive qualities of mind, positive states of mind that lead on their own to a great sense of well-being and happiness and stability, and serve as the basis for development of insight and true deliverance of mind. So that we can become very energized and enthusiastic through reflection like this. And that leads to the states of calmness and tranquility, of stillness. We direct our mind in these ways through the 7 factors, passaddhi, tranquility, stillness, and furthering to the development of concentration, samadhi, that unification of mind that leads to great clarity, great peace, and the quality of equanimity, perhaps the most mature state of mind that we can develop within the realm of conditions as a launching pad for complete liberation. So these factors of enlightenment, these positive qualities that push us in the direction of stability of mind, of a sense of repleteness, a sense of that we're not controlled by the ups and downs of the world around us, but can establish a sense of stability and peacefulness that is ripe for understanding, the Four Noble Truths, back to the beginning of what we were talking about, seeing clearly the Four Noble Truths with all of these supports and requisites pushing us in that direction of deep understanding, deep penetration, of suffering, the path leading to it, and the actual realization. So if we use this is it's not just a doctrine that we're implored to learn or to believe, but this is a tool, a very important tool, and to be able to use this kind of outline that the Buddha talks about as the basis for fully developing appropriate attention. This is one of the most powerful tools that we have from the teachings. And we can use this template to just reflect over and over again in different ways throughout our day, throughout our lives as practitioners, and to evaluate, well, how am I doing with this? Am I attending appropriately? To keep the true practice at heart and not to get lost in all the various distractions that can take me away from trying to really develop and understand and fully develop this path to the best of ability. To really take care and caution not to get caught up in the successes that we have, or the fame or gain or honor that comes to us, the praise that people can give to us, the support that we get, but to use these very carefully, not to get caught up in them, not to buy them as the be-all and the end-all for our practice, but to really keep in mind, going back to the true goal of transcending all of these worldly conditions, looking for a true peace that the Buddha talks about that's not dependent on any condition in the world, through relinquishing all of these ways that we think that we can find happiness, but really always in some way lead to this sense of disappointment. Never quite fits the bill, only lasts for a short term. To redirect ourselves to staying with the basics, staying with the path. What are we doing here? Always asking ourselves, is this serving the purpose of finding true freedom and the full liberation of the heart that the Buddha promises us if we just continue on the path? If we keep appropriate attention in mind and always look and evaluate, is what I'm putting my mind to, is how is the way I'm spending my time leading to greater peace, greater simplicity, contentment, and being unburdensome. Is this where it's leading? And if so, to keep doing it and to encourage each other to keep doing it. And remembering too that, as we move from the internal to the external, as we open our eyes, move through the world, to constantly find like-minded people who are doing the same thing, who will support us in not getting involved in the worldly winds, but keeping our hearts in the practice, keeping our intentions to establishing goodness, peace, and compassion for the suffering around us. So I'll just leave that for a few reflections for this evening. Unless you want to
No, it's good.
skip the whole evening of the lunar observance night. So before we close, no, yeah, this is the lunar observance night. So the community here has the opportunity to continue practicing into the evening. I myself will probably, I'll be up for a while, but with leaving tomorrow in the afternoon and many things happening, I think we'll just make it kind of an optional evening for late night practice, and for people who want to continue some tea at midnight over in the dining hall. Yes, so people who would like to stay and continue practicing with the community are welcome to, and people who need to leave may do so as well.